Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe, and I want you to know if you are struggling right now, please reach out for help. Don't suffer in silence. I'm excited to have my guest today, Regina H, who's been sober since 1997. A woman who grew up in La Puente, California, and someone who knows firsthand what it means to overcome difficult circumstances. After growing up surrounded by alcoholism and navigating the challenges of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Regina found a new way to live through recovery. Today, she stays grounded through service, the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the daily practice of acceptance. She often says the Serenity Prayer has saved her life more than once, and that recovery has allowed her to become the person she always wanted to be. I'm really looking forward to learning more about her story, so grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. Hi, Regina. How you doing?
Hi, Joe. I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for your willingness to come on and share your story.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So what was it like growing up, Regina?
Whew.
Loaded question.
It was a very good question. Well, it started out pretty good. I had two loving parents. My dad was an engineer, and he developed some of the parts that were in the first capsules that went up into space. My mother was an entertainer. She sang with Tommy Dorsey and his big band, and then somehow they ended up together, right? And they had two children. I was the second born. My mother was 35 years old when she had me. And everything, as a young child, everything seemed to be okay. They would have parties, and I remember walking around the coffee table and grabbing the martinis because they had green olives in them. And I would drink what was left of the martini and go on about my little business. This is like 2-3 years old. I just remember going in the corner and laying down. And my mother was the PTA president, council president of our school district, very well known. Our family was very well known. My dad would be in the plays and be Santa Claus during Christmas. And it was, like I said, looked like it was a very good upbringing. Except for it wasn't really. It looked like that on the outside. On the inside of our home, they would drink to the point where, they were screaming and yelling. My sister and I would hide in our bedroom to get away from what was happening. At one point, my mom decided every glass dish in the house needed to get broke. Those kind of things is what I grew up with. And then I would come outside and go to school. And, we're supposed to be the people of the neighborhood, and everybody's talking behind our backs. And I couldn't say a word. I was paralyzed in that. And this went on for several years. My dad lost every job that he got. He's a chronic alcoholic. He would sit in the front of our street at the curb in his car and drink all day long. And of course, the neighbors saw this. He would go down to Mickey's Market on Valley Boulevard, and he would be there, and we would walk. My mom would send us to go get him. And this seemed like a normal life, right? This is it was like normal to me. When I was 16 years old, we lost our home. My mom got an apartment for my sister and herself, and my dad stayed in the home until he got booted out. And then he lived on Valley Boulevard homeless. And I was very angry 16-year-old girl. And I had started drinking. Well, I started using drugs quite young. Like at 11, I was sniffing glue, gas, whatever I could to get out of what I was feeling. Started drinking alcoholically by the time I was 15. I was going to school drunk, smoking weed, doing whatever I could, and not wanting to open up to my friends what was really going on. So that was very challenging. My mother was now working as a bartender in 2 different bars, which I would go in and shoot pool and, be there with all these older men. And I'm like 17, not, just doing the deal, living life. Graduated high school. I don't know how I did that. I had a D-. I think one of the teachers just decided they would let me go, let me graduate. During this time, my mother, so I graduated in June of 1972. My mother was arrested for bookmaking in front of me. It was the strangest thing because I had pulled up to our apartment and my neighbor said, "Regina, the cops are looking for you." And I'm like, "Well, why are the cops looking for me? And I'm thinking, what did I do last night? Right? Well, no, they weren't looking for me. They were looking for my mother. And so they arrested her. And I'm standing there watching these officers put handcuffs on my mom thinking, now this is going to bring tears to my eyes. Now what am I supposed to do? My dad's living on the street. And now my mother's in jail. And my boyfriend at the time, the one that told me that the cops were looking for me, his dad helped me figure out a way to get her out of jail. And the day I got her out, she went to the bar and is drunk. And I went in there and just raised all kinds of hell and told her, "You need to get up." This is my attorney. She tells me, I said, "I don't give a shit. Excuse me. I do not care who this man is. You need to come home." It's like, come on, Mom, get a grip, right? Not to say that I was sober because I had been drinking before I went in there to get her. I get her home. And we got into this huge argument. And I said, "You know what? I hate you and I wish you were dead." The next morning, I got up and she was dead in the living room on the floor. And that just took me down a spiral that I could not climb my way out of. It did not matter what I was trying to do. I moved in with my boyfriend and his family. And then I ended up pregnant with my daughter and he was a womanizer. And I just, it's like every time I thought my life would be okay, something else was happening. And I just couldn't pull it together. I wasn't drinking that much at the time, but I was taking cross-top whites to stay awake so that I could work and have a child. I ended up moving in with him. Silly thing that I did, but I moved in with him. And he got strung out on cannabinol, which is a horse tranquilizer, elephant. I don't know what it was. But anyways, I'm constantly trying to keep him alive. And I'm trying to raise this little girl. And I just got wrapped up in working, taking these cross-top whites, which is a form of speed, trying to keep a family, trying to make, it was like all I really wanted was a home and somebody to love me and a safe place. And I just couldn't seem to find that. It was like, then he decided that I could be a punching bag and yeah. So anyways, I left him. Actually, we got married, of course, right? And then I left him for another man because don't you know this other man's going to save me? And this is in between. I have a son now. So now I have 2 children. And the other man's going to save me. He's going to make sure that everything is okay. The bills are paid. I'm going to have a home. The kids will have clothes. The kids will have food because you never knew where I was going to get food from. I I worked in retail, so I would steal money out of the till so I could buy some food and feed my kids. It was really not a good place for me to be. So this other man, he was my boss, and he, I worked in a hardware store then, and he's going to save my life. He's going to, all of those things. So of course the grass is greener. So I packed my stuff up in the middle of the night while the other one is at work, and I leave, thinking that I was making the right choice. And what happened was I made the wrong choice. I married an alcoholic, a chauvinistic pig that the day we got married, I was now a piece of crap. And he took me out of the gutter, and he would put me back in the gutter, and all of this craziness. And I stayed with him for about 6 years. And he had gotten violent with my son a couple of times. It was just, and me not knowing how, because I had no guidance growing up. I had no coping skills at all. I didn't have anybody say, hey, you don't have to live like this, or, hey, this is a better way. I had nobody, and I was trying to do this all on my own. And don't you know, I'm a strong woman and I can do it. I ended up leaving that second husband. And my son at this point was staying with his dad. And so I called his dad, and my daughter was at church camp. I said, I'm going to go to the beach for a few days. And he could tell my voice. And this is my first husband, right? He could tell my voice. He said, no, you need to come here and I will help you. Well, he was dealing drugs in a motel, and he's going to help me. Well, I went, and he put me up in a room. We ended up back together because, I don't know. I mean, we did. And now that I look back at it, we ended up back together because he had the drugs and he had money. And it wasn't because he was the father of my children. So that had a lot to do with it. And he was the love of my life. And, he was there when my mother died. All of those things kind of collided in that. So I ended up back with him. And a couple of months later, I get arrested for possession, which I handed over the drugs to the cops because, I'm a little whacked out now. I have voices in my head telling me what to do, and I'm following the voices. The cops pull me over and start talking to me, and they told me to go home. I said, okay. And this is really strange because I couldn't get out of that neighborhood to save my soul. And they came back. And then I laughed because they came back and they looked at me and they said, do you do drugs? I go, well, of course. Like, I'm really smart, right? And do you have any on you? Yeah, in my pocket. Here you go, right? And then they're arresting me, and I'm like, well, why are you arresting me? I told you the truth. Well, don't you know, I went to jail. And I got out. They let me out on my OR and all of that and said I needed to go to drug diversion. I said, okay. So the day that I went to drug diversion, that night, I started drug diversion. I went back to the hotel room, and we went to another hotel, and somebody had called and wanted some drugs. And I was telling them I was in between. Next thing I know, we're being arrested for drug sales because we were set up. So then I went to, just some crazy stuff, right? And did I get sober after that? No, I did not. He made a deal with the cops, got me out, and then he didn't fulfill what he said he was going to do, and they raided us, put my daughter on the ground with a shotgun to her head, looking for me, and I still did not get sober. I went to jail for 62 days, got out, and don't you know, I'm going to try to be a good woman. I'm going to be a good mother. Everything's going to be fine. He went to prison. He got out of prison. We were still together. Within 2 months, we're right back doing the same stuff. And he He's always been a womanizer, and I was telling him he was seeing somebody. He's telling me no. He's telling, you're crazy. It's all in your mind. If you quit using, that would go away. Blah blah blah. And I'm no. So finally, I left him and stayed at a friend's house, and he called me and told me he was arrested with his girlfriend, the one that he didn't have. And I thought, you blah blah, right? So now I am not using crystal meth. I'm only smoking weed now. And I had a girlfriend that I had met while I was in jail that we stayed friends. I don't know why, but we met in jail, and her name is Tammy. And she knew kind of what was going on in my world. And I've only touched base on a few of the things. I don't need to go into everything, but she kept calling me and saying, you need to come over here. And I'd say, no, I don't. And F you. And I'm not. And we didn't have cell phones then because I'm old, right? So we didn't have cell phones. I would slam the phone down and say, F you, leave me alone, slam the phone. She'd call right back, slam the phone. And finally I said, okay, I'll come over there. And she was in a sober living. And I didn't know what a sober living was. And it was co-ed. And I told her I don't feel safe. But the whole thing is I had a plan. And my plan was I was going to go to the hotel, because this is how sick my brain is. I'm going to go to the hotel where he was arrested with Jeanette, the girlfriend that he didn't have. And I'm going to kill myself in that room. Because don't you know, I'm going to show you. And that... And she apparently had an inkling of what was going on in my mind. So I went over there, and everybody started 12-stepping me. And I told them, I said, you have 48 hours to change my mind. And I walked in there on June 14th in 1997. And they told me I had to get up and be at a 6:15 a.m. meeting, attitude adjustment meeting. I had to go. I had chores to do. And I'm looking at them and I kept asking the manager, where's the book of rules? Because apparently there's rules here and I don't know what they are. And he would laugh because there really wasn't any rules. The only rule that there was, go to meetings, get sober, get a sponsor, and, this young man, Devin, I walked through the living room, and he had, the night before, had given me his AA book. Told me I needed it more than he did. And the next day when I'd gone to the noon meeting, I got up early in the morning, went to that 6:15 meeting, and I would not clarify myself as being anything. I was there. I closed my eyes. I wouldn't say anything. I thought if my eyes were closed, you couldn't see me. And I would hear people share, and the voices that I heard, I knew. And I kept thinking, it's the voices in your head. They're not the real people that are sharing. These are the people that are talking to you in your head, right? And then when I opened my eyes, there was somebody that I had known since I was 16 years old. That was a friend of me and my first husband. And third husband, because I married somebody in between, but had known me since I was 16, before my mother died. And he said, Regina, it's time, don't you think? And I said, well, he blah, blah, blah. And he says, no. This is not about him. This is about you. And don't you think it's time? And I just looked at him like, what the hell are you talking about? And when I went back to the sober living, I had come in from the backyard. I don't even know what I was doing or what I was thinking, but I was walking through the living room, and that young man, Devin, said, are you going to stay or are you going to leave? And I just looked at him and I said, I don't know. And as I was walking through that living room, I just walked to the phone and I called my daughter. She lived in Las Vegas at the time. And I said, April, you can come and get my stuff, because I had a dresser that my grandfather had made and stuff like that over at the people's house that I was no longer at. I said, you can come and get my things, but I think I'm going to stay here. And she said, what do you mean you're going to stay there? And I said, yeah, Tammy's here, and it's some sort of sober living. I don't really understand what it's all about, but I think I'm going to stay. And she says, okay, but why? And I said, and I'm going to cry again. I said, because it's time for me to heal. It's time to heal. And she started crying, and my son was, both of them were in Las Vegas at the time. And it's like, I need to heal from this crazy life that I've lived and figure out who I really am, because I don't know. I'm not your mother. It's like I wasn't a good I didn't think I was a good mother. I let a lot of things happen around my children, and watching them be screamed at and yelled at, and that I didn't have the oomph in me to stop, and I didn't know how to get out of it. Right. So, gosh, I didn't mean to cry. So I ended up staying, and it took me about 6 months before I really, really surrendered to the fact that I was an addict. I was an alcoholic. And what I told them when I went into that home was, I'm nothing like you. I'm a traumatized woman. I'm addicted to abusive love and, all of this. But I'm not like you. And lo and behold, I am no different than anybody. I am that person. And I did not want to be that person. I always thought, you know what? I'm better than him. I'm not as bad as this one. I'm not as bad as that one. And now in hindsight, I look at it, I was running neck and neck with every one of them, but I thought I wasn't. So, I remember sitting in a women's meeting, and I was about 6 months sober because I hadn't really done anything up to that point outside of go to meetings. Right. And I was taking care of a brand new baby to pay my rent, because I had to pay rent at this sober living. So I was babysitting an addictive baby that I had to give phenobarbital to. I was cleaning houses, scrubbing bathrooms on my hands and knees, doing whatever I could to pay the rent. Took care of exotic birds, a whole aviary of these crazy birds. I had to take care of them. Anything to pay the rent, right? I needed to pay the rent. And then I said, all I need is extra $20 so I can buy a carton of cigarettes, because then I smoked like 3 packs a day. So, but that, I was doing all of that, but I wasn't really doing anything to the inside of me. And we were in a women's meeting, and this woman named Ruth shared. And she shared about her mother just dying. And I don't know, everything, the floodgates opened. My mother's name was Ruth. And I realized, and we're going to do it again, I realized that I did not want to die. And that's all I was trying to do for all of those years, was trying to kill myself a very slow, miserable death. And if I can't do it this way, maybe he can do it by hitting me hard enough, or I could just whatever. And that realization came to me that I did not want to die. And I wanted to be there for my children. And that's when I decided I need to do this. And I got a sponsor, and I started working the steps. And I basically, I said, I closed my eyes and I threw that white flag in the middle of the room and finally gave up. I can't do this on my own. This is a disease. This is a mental disease, because it's not just physically addicted, you're mentally addicted. And it's like, I need to change. And I started the process. I started working those steps and starting to make a change. The first step, admitted that I was powerless over alcohol, drugs, and that my life was unmanageable, because, for years I thought I was doing okay. I'm managing. I'm making sure the kids get fed, even though I'm stealing the money to do it. I'm making sure the husband's doing whatever, right, even though he's beating me up on the weekends. I'm doing all of these things. And so I thought my life, I'm managing it, but that's not really managing. I was surviving. And, I had to learn that, number one, I'm worth being sober. I'm worth doing the work of the 12 steps that, they saved my life. Second step, that one's a good one for me. Because when my mother died, I cussed God out and told him he was never welcome in my life again, ever. Do not come back to me. I can't believe you did this to me. And what did I do to deserve this? All of that was God. It was all on God. So I kept telling my sponsor, God's not going to help me. And I laugh now because, and she kept asking me, well, why? And I said, well, because I cussed him out and told him to get out, and I never wanted him back again. Why is he going to help me? Right? I threw him out. And, we sat and talked for a while, and she said, well, you seem to have a lot of, you have a lot of anger and hate towards your mother. You have a lot of anger and hate towards your dad. And by now my mom died when I was 18. My dad, when I was probably 29, somewhere around there, both from the disease. She says, and maybe if you write them a letter, and while you're at it, why don't you write God a letter? And I thought, what? But I did. I sat down and I wrote my mother a letter and made an amends to her and, apologized for screaming at her. And I didn't hate her. It was just the whole thing. And that I knew she was being the best mother she could, that she was capable. And my dad, the same. He was a chronic alcoholic, but he did the best he could with what he had to work with. Right. And that is something that was an awakening to me, that I finally realized that was the truth, that they were living in their own disease and their own, they did the best they could. And I wrote a letter of amends to God. And my mother, because she was an entertainer, she wore red lipstick and she would kiss envelopes or kiss foreheads, right? So I put red lipstick on and I kissed these envelopes and I handed them over to my sponsor. And the minute I handed them over and her hands took those letters, it was like so much was lifted off to me. I could feel the warmth coming over me, that I was going to be okay. And that God was right there with me. And he was with me the whole time, because if he wasn't with me, I wouldn't be alive. He carried me through so much that it's like, now when I look at it, it's like, oh, thank you for being there. I mean, he helped me with my children. He helped me with my, even when I was surviving, God was there carrying me, and I never knew it. I never, no, he's back here doing whatever. Right. So I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity in those moments that I handed the letter over to her. She took it to the Holy Land and put it in the Wailing Wall, which was amazing to me. It was like, okay, I don't even know where the Wailing Wall is. I know that there is the Holy Land. Okay, right. And my life started to change. And I started to feel happiness inside that I'd never felt since I was very young, a peace that I never felt. And it just kept getting better. The more I committed myself to myself, because that's what to myself, that I had to learn that I was worthy of having a good life, worthy of making choices that are going to make things be a better example to my children. Right. And they were grown now. And I just get it at the way life is, I turned my will and my life over to care of God. And at that point, God to me was the ocean, because the waves are constant, the stars, the sun, the moon, all of that. And it's the only way I could have a higher power. And it had to be bigger than me. Everybody says it's got to be bigger than you. Well, those waves keep crashing, right? They keep, and the stars and the moon keep coming up. So it you know, Summer says it's the universe, and I was like, the stars, the moon. I never said the universe, right? But that's what it was. And then, you know, when I handed those letters over and I accepted my higher power as God, he's bigger than me. He created all of that stuff that I was saying was saving my ass, right? He, excuse me for cussing too. But he created everything that I was using as a higher power. Yeah. So I've not, you know, it's funny because I was sitting here thinking, and I thought, you know, I walked in that sober living, and I had to ask him when it was, because, you know, I went to an NA meeting, I went to an AA meeting, and I took a 30-day chip from alcohol, but I was still, so I had to go take that chip back because, you know, I was smoking weed and doing whatever, but I wasn't drinking, so I thought I was good, right? And I remember having to take that chip back and say, well, I'm not really 30 days sober, because, you know, and I told him, I said, well, you guys separated it. So I did. Well, it's not really separated, right? And it's yeah. So I had to take that first chip back, and because I wasn't completely sober, but I hadn't drank any alcohol. So, but anyways, I had to go back to Colleen, that was she was the manager of the sober living I was in. And I said, Colleen, when did I get here? What day did I start this journey? And she said, well, let's go look. I said, okay. And that's how June 14th came up. So I am like, June 14th. Okay. And I have not had to drink, use anything since that day. And, you know, I feel very blessed, because coming into this recovery, I didn't think I had that big of a problem, even though I had voices. I was schizophrenic, drug-induced schizophrenia, drank to the point where I would be, I mean, got stopped being invited to parties when I was 15 years old because I didn't know how to control my alcohol. But I didn't have a problem. No problems at all. I would get thrown out of bars. No, I'm better than that. But
my old sponsor used to call that swimming upstream in the river of denial.
I was raised that, you know, whatever, you're better than that, right? I'm better, even though, no, I'm not. I'm not better. And I'm no different than anybody else. I definitely had a problem. And it was really hard to acknowledge that I had a problem, because I was trying to hold life together for so many people, you know, trying to be a mom, even though, you know, my daughter says I was pretty good mom. My son, and my daughter says, you weren't that bad, but that's because she didn't realize all the things I was doing, right? I hid it quite well for a long time, until the last year, they didn't know what I was doing. And then when I went back to their dad, they knew. And that was a very sad part of my life, that to watch them see me get arrested.
Yeah.
All of those things.
How did you begin to rebuild trust with them, Regina?
Well, my daughter wasn't that hard. She had come to visit me while I was at the sober living. And then when I turned a year sober, she came with my step grandchildren, because she had married a man that was older than her. And he had 3 children, and they came to the La Puente Center in La Puente to give me my 1-year chip. And so she was, it wasn't so hard with my daughter. My son, I didn't think he was ever gonna. He came to visit me one time and he said, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Right. And when he came to visit me, he also went to go visit his dad, and his dad's doing the same thing. Right. And I was a little over a year sober when he came to visit. And I had taken him to a couple of meetings, which he didn't like, but that's what I did. I go to meetings. Right. And of course, he had gone to visit his dad, and his dad's still living the same lifestyle. I had divorced his dad. Well, matter of fact, 6 months along, I got the paperwork. He was in prison, and his mom had said, are you going to write him? Because he wrote me a couple of letters. I could tell you that story. The first letter I opened, and I was in the sober living, and I opened it and I read it, and I thought, Of course, the little, the stomach started doing that quiver, and, he's my guy, blah, blah, blah. And then I just kind of said, nope. And then I got another letter, and I called my sponsor's house, and she was in Greece or somewhere. I don't remember where she was in Greece. And her roommate, Dennis, answered the phone. And I said, Dennis, I got this letter. And I opened the first one, and he had a unicorn drawn on it, because I love unicorns. This is way to get back. And he always knew how to get back in. Right. And Dennis said, well, have you opened it? I said, no, I have not opened it. That's why I'm calling you. I don't know. He said, well, burn it. I said, what? He goes, burn it. And I said, no shit. So I did. Right. So then his mom said, I had called his mom, and I said, he needs to stop. She said, well, are you going to answer him? I said, no. The only thing I want from him is divorce papers. I paid for the first one. He can pay for this one. Right. So my son, of course, this is his dad, and he loves his dad. Right. So it was like, Mom, he wasn't that bad. I remember these things, but it wasn't. And I'm like, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter. We are not good together. We're toxic together. So we can't be together. And, so I finally got the divorce papers, and I remember calling Verna. She ran the sober living, and I said, I got my divorce papers. She goes, oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. I said, no, we need to have a party. I said, we need a party. And, so I got divorced, and I was pretty happy about that. Right. And I didn't date or anything. I did not want anything to do with any kind of a relationship with anybody. It was like, no. And there was rumors going around that I was lesbian, and I'm not. And and all it was I needed to do that work on Regina. And in the meantime, I'm trying to build a relationship, right? With my kids. And I met a man. I was about 4 years sober. His name's Kevin. He was from North Carolina, and we connected. I walked in the sober living to pick up one of the girls I was sponsoring to go to the convention, and he was sitting in the living room, and our eyes met, and I looked at Patricia, and I said, who is that? And I was talking about him for a reason, because I took him to Nevada to meet my children, right? Because we're getting kind of serious, right? We're and so I take him with me. And he had to go to the sheriff's department and let him know he was in town because he had a record. And I thought, oh, this is really good. Right. So we get to my son's, and he could see the relationship that my son's kind of and I'm like, I don't know what to say. And on the way home, it took us like 4.5 hours to drive back to La Puente, or Covina is where we were. And I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to have that relationship. And he says, all you can do is keep doing what you're doing, Regina, and he will come around. And I thought, he hasn't shown up for any of, I've just got 4 years. He didn't show up. He's not going to show up. But I'll just, I would call him, how you doing, son? Try to build a relationship. And Kevin said, just don't push. And I said, okay, I'm trying not to, but it's really hard. He's my baby, right? Well, when I turned 5 years sober, my son drove the 4.5 hours from Las Vegas to Covina to be there at 10 o'clock at night when I took my 5-year chip. Because he thought, if I could get 5 years, I'm going to stay. And it just, and I just left him this morning. I went to Huntington Beach to visit him, and it's like we have a good relationship today. My daughter lives right around the corner. And that man that I took, I married. I married him September 7th of 2002. And we moved immediately to South Carolina, which I didn't know where that was. I started a whole new program, met new people. My son walked me down the aisle. My daughter was my maid of honor, and she was 8.5 months pregnant when she she was so happy with me. And it's funny because, like I said, I didn't date anybody really, and we connected, and he understood me better than I understood myself, and I understood him. And he had already had a year sobriety. He was sober while he was in prison, which is so funny to me, but we had a wonderful life. We went to the friendship group back east. When we weren't going to meetings, we would sit down and talk about things. That is, I never sat down and talked to anybody about what was going on in my mind, right? I didn't know how to express my feelings or tell somebody things. And we worked that quite well. Even in trying times, we were okay. I knew, I found somebody that loved me unconditionally for who I was. Not who they wanted me to be, not who I thought I should be, but who I was. And, I'm not really I wasn't that easy to live with, because I had my valleys. He had his valleys, but we learned how to work through them. And that is because of what we did in recovery. We learned how to, it's like I learned how to express myself, how to listen. Oh my gosh, listen. Listen to what somebody else has to say. And like I said, we had a really good marriage. So, not that everything was perfect, because it wasn't, right? He had bouts of depression, but I learned how to work through that with him. It's like when I said I do, which is the strangest thing to me, is that the other times I got married, and I married one of them twice. The second time I married him was in Jamestown Prison here in California. Smart thing to do. Really smart. I never really made a commitment. I didn't know what that meant, right? I didn't know, years ago, people got married and they were married for 40, 50 years, right? Well, as I grew up, marriage wasn't that big of a deal. You lived with somebody, you did whatever. It wasn't a commitment. And I learned through working these steps how to make a commitment. And I made a commitment to him. I threw my shoes off. I walked in I got married outside and I kicked my shoes off. And it was like, I made a commitment to this man before God. And that was, it didn't matter what was going on in our lives. I knew that I had made a commitment to him and that I loved him, and I loved him unconditionally, and he loved me unconditionally. And that is one of the things that I put in my big book as one of my goals, right? And I got it. Everything that I said was going to be a goal, I got it. Took me a minute. I wasn't employable for the first 2 years. I still had voices talking to me. The woman that ran the sober living, I was there probably about 3 months. And I said, how long do I need to stay here, do you think? She said, someone like you, 2 years. And I went, okay. I didn't argue. It's like, okay, I'll be here for 2 years. Was there for 19 months. But you know what I mean? It's like, I finally, I don't even know how to explain that. I really don't. People were working in my life that, and I was listening and I was hearing and I was, it was like, okay, open-minded. I finally was open-minded enough and willing to be honest with somebody with my innermost, darkest secrets that nobody needed to know. Nobody needed to know. And that one about my mother, I held. Well, let's see. I got sober when I was 42, so I held it for 30-something years. Nobody knew what I had said. Nobody knew anything, right? My dad came the night that my mom died, drunk on his ass, ran into the brick wall, came in and told me how much he loved her, and I got up and walked away from him. Because to me, it's all a lie. It was all a lie. But then going through the 12 steps, going through my 4th and 5th step, which, people say, oh, that's horrible. I don't want to do the 4th step. Well, it was so relieving to me that I could finally open up and put things down on paper that had been killing me, keeping me awake at night. Not, the things that happened were, I didn't want anybody to know that I allowed these things to happen in my life. That I wasn't a strong enough woman to stop it. And my way of solving everything was to get drunk or, to get high, to do something. And when things got really bad, really crazy in my world, I decided, well, it's a good thing to put a needle in my arm now. Right? No, it's not a good thing to do. Right? And I mean, I hear a lot of stories because, I've been around for a minute and I've heard a lot of stories and, it's like we beat ourselves up for the things that we've done. And then we're able to put it out there, share it with somebody else, hopefully be completely honest. And when somebody does that with me, after we're done, I burn it. And I give it, let's burn it and watch it go up in ash, right? And that seems to help people. It helped me. When I did my work, we had everybody at the sober living. We were all sitting in a circle, and I pulled out my 4th step work, and I said, I'm going to tear off pages, and each one of you are going to burn it. And I said a prayer and went around, and everybody burned it. And I was like, yay, it's all gone. Sometimes things come back. I just open up and share about them when they come back. Okay. Where am I at now?
Well, you said you were talking about honestly open-mindedness and willingness. And, I did a couple of tours of duty in rehab, and we always used to talk about the how of the program,
Mm-hmm.
But in the spiritual experience where that's written, it's actually willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. It's actually the who of the program,
Yes.
and that who is God as we understand God, or a higher power, or,
Right.
and that's what it kind of made me, when you said that, I was like, man, I was like, you're in this facility, and it's, I think what you were looking for your whole life was this good, orderly direction.
It was.
And you finally got
Mm-hmm.
the direction you were willing to follow and do the work and heal. And it's beautiful. It's such a powerful thing.
I wouldn't.
No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I would not change a thing, you know. Um, and it's funny because I was sharing the other day and I started to cry. I did not finish the story about my husband. I had come out here to visit my son in Bakersfield from North Carolina. And he said, well, why, Mom, you've been away for a long time now. You ought to think about moving back. I'm like, okay, well, let me go home. We'll talk to Kevin, see what he says. We'll talk about it. I don't know. In the back of my mind, I thought that's never going to happen, but okay, I'll think about it. And I went home and we talked about it. And I mean, we didn't have a whole lot. We had a single wide trailer that, is like, okay, well, we could put that up for sale, I guess. It's like, okay. And who would have thought somebody would buy it? I didn't. I really didn't. And the minute we said something, there was a woman at the door the next day. And I thought, okay, we're supposed to move. And so we packed everything up and moved here to Bakersfield. And I had started a job with my daughter-in-law. Well, she wasn't my daughter-in-law yet, but they were living together. And I started a job with her. I had a job before I even got here. Before I even left Bakersfield to go back home, I had a job if I wanted it, right? So, and then we got here. He went to work. Everything was great. And he had gone for a new job, and they sent him for a physical, and his iron was extremely low. So got him to the doctor, and they kept, they were running tests, and he ended up having stomach cancer that had moved into his colon. And that was 6 months after we moved here. And I lost him 11 months later. And God put me exactly where I was supposed to be. My son was here in Bakersfield. When my daughter was, at the time, her and her husband were living in Charlotte. Well, they weren't married yet either, but been together forever. They were living in Charlotte, North Carolina. They packed up and moved to Bakersfield. My husband got really ill, and he was in the hospital for 8 days. It took him 8 days to get the pain under control. Got him out, and within 2 weeks, my daughter and her friends had planned a wedding, and my husband was able to walk my daughter down at her wedding. That was February 13th, and he died April 16th. And that, God steps in. And I know this is not a religious program or any of that, but my God steps in, and he puts me where he wants me to be. And I would have never landed in Bakersfield, California. This is not a place that I wanted to be. It's like, I don't like Bakersfield. But he brought me here, and he landed me here. And my husband passed away here, and I immediately jumped into the middle of the herd here. Didn't know anybody. I knew one person that went to the program here, and that was a woman that was the mother of one of the men I worked with. And she came and got me and took me to a meeting. And I reconnected. And my husband, I was walking through the living room one day, and he said, "What are you going to do when I'm gone?" And I said, "I'm going back to AA." And he said, "Good." And that's what I've done. And God works in mysterious ways. He puts us where, and he does things behind the scenes that we have no idea what's going on. Right? And I am so blessed that I was able to be there for my husband and walk through that as gracefully as I could, and not, I was okay. Okay. I just kept saying, "God, you got to help me get through this. You got to help me get through this." And he put everybody where they needed to be. And I was okay. It's like, I'm okay. Do I miss my husband? Heck yeah. But that's a marriage that I will never regret, ever. And that was all in recovery, every bit of it.
It's pretty awesome. It's I love how you said you guys would communicate ups and downs. And it's my wife and I are both in recovery too. And I met her. She hadn't dated in 12 years.
Yeah.
I hadn't dated in 4 years. I had given up. She had pretty much given up. And anyway, but it's the first relationship where we actually do communicate. For me, that it feels like my first adult relationship.
I agree.
Now she may think I'm a child, but that's how I kind of look at it. But yeah, that's pretty cool. One of the things I was thinking, like, because you've been sober, 30 years almost
29
now.
29
29 years.
29
Today, 29 years.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool. Happy rebirthday, as I call it.
Yeah.
So how do you keep your recovery fresh and new and exciting for yourself?
Oh, well. I go to meetings, of course. I have a commitment at a noon meeting. I just now took a commitment at the Friday night speaker meeting, so I'm the secretary of that. I work with a lot of women. I hand my number out. I share my experience, strength, and hope. And, it's funny because my kids, my daughter's right around the corner here, and I see her maybe once every couple of weeks. I have a great granddaughter that was just born that I just seen this past yesterday for the first time in a month, because I am so busy with working with women, doing what I do. And, I wake up, and a lot of times my phone's on silent right now because I'm doing this, but my phone is on 24/7. And I've gotten phone calls at 3:00 in the morning. It's what I do. And my son, I tell him, because he's in Huntington Beach, I said, well, now I have 2 commitments on Friday. So if I come, I'll come on Saturday and I'll stay till Thursday because I have these commitments, right? And he just looks at me and he says, yeah, but it gives you a purpose, doesn't it, Mom? I said, yes, because I'm 72 years old. What kind of purpose is a 72? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't work anymore. I should. I could. But nobody wants to hire a 72-year-old woman. I'll be 72 in September. And I've been doing this for a long time. And it is so rewarding to be able to help somebody else go through the steps and to watch them change. I watch Summer grow up. And I have a saying that, steps 1, 2, and 3 will get you sober. 10, 11, and 12 will keep you sober. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 is where you grow up and where you learn how to be the person that you want to be. And that is, I watched women change. I've seen it. And it's so rewarding to me to be able to be part of that. And I can't do that if I'm not doing this. Right? If I stop doing what I do, I'm not going to be able to watch somebody change and watch their lives change and watch them get their children back. Go to court with them if that's what need be. And I don't lie in court. I had a woman I went to court for, and they asked me, what step is she on? I said, well, she thought she was on this step, but she's not. She's on step 1. And, I won't sit here and say that she's done this because she has not done it. She's working towards it, but this is where she's at. And, I don't candy coat anything either. I will call you on your crap right away.
That's what I like about you. That's what I like about you, Regina.
Somebody did it to me. That little redhead lady that ran that sober living, she would tell you exactly what she thought about you and what you needed to do. And by God, you better get up and do it. And that was me. She's telling me you need to, and I'm like, okay. One time in one of the meetings, I was jabbering like I do, as you can tell, jabbering away. And she turned around and looked at me. She says, you speak when you're spoken to, young lady, and not before. I sat back and went, okay, that was my mother. I'm going to shut the heck up now. Right? That was a turning point for me. And somebody had to tell me that.
So what would you say to someone who might be listening who maybe feels hopeless?
Well, you're not alone. Everybody that comes into this room is helpless and hopeless. Just keep coming back. Find somebody to talk to. I'm here. Give out my phone number. I'll take the call. Right? I felt hopeless. I felt like I was the slime in the gutter when I came into this program. Slime in the gutter. I didn't think I was worth a darn thing. And I have learned, and I have worked, and I have surrendered, and I've grown. And I wake up every day and I'm blessed. I am not hopeless anymore. And you don't have to be that way. You don't have to live that way, and you don't have to feel that way. We have a solution. We have a solution. If you want to know what it is, give me a call. Right? That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you can put my number out there. I don't care.
I will do that for you, Regina, with Regina's permission.
It's my job. That's what I say. This is my job.
Yeah.
It's my
I
job.
love it.
Somebody did it for me, right? Yeah. People did it for me. If my girlfriend didn't keep calling me and telling me that I needed to come over to that sober living, that I had no idea. And I was in a psych ward once for a week, right? Because I am crazy. Okay. So drug induced crazy. And they said, you need a 12-step program. And I looked at the tiles on the floor and I walked 12 steps. I said, there you go. I know nothing about a 12-step program. I knew nothing. I do believe my dad went to a couple of AA meetings when I was young. And because I vaguely remember him saying, they want me to say I'm an alcoholic and I can't do that. And he drank himself to death. I mean, he was homeless. And I had friends and it's like, there's my dad. Right? And I see people today and I look at them and I see them on the street and they're talking to themselves. And I'm like, that was me. That was me. And everybody, a lot of the people that know me don't really believe that, but that was me. I mean, I couldn't even get out of a neighborhood because my voices were telling me, no, you can't leave because he's over here and you've got to go find him. Right? And I could not get out of the neighborhood. And then the cops came back and then I give them my drugs here. Right here. Take me. I don't know. So if someone like me because I was pretty sick. Someone like me can come in and do and be able to stay clean and sober for 29 years. That's, if I can, there's nobody out there that can't. We just buried a friend that couldn't stay sober. I have another friend whose 2 grandchildren stepped in front of trains and committed suicide because of this disease. It kills. And it wants us dead. That's why it keeps going, right? I have a wolf on my back. My husband looked at the wolf as it was pouncing. He said, that's my disease trying to get me. So I put a wolf on my back for him, because that the disease is always trying to work its way back, even though no matter what we do, if we stop for a minute and we go, oh, I'm okay, I don't have to do this, or and then all of a sudden that little voice comes in here, well, you could probably have a drink, you could probably do a line, you could probably stick a needle in your arm one more time, right? No, because if you do that, you're going to continue on, and you may not make it back. And that's the whole thing. You may not make it back. And I've buried a lot of people. I don't want to do that. It's really sad to me when people get a little bit of sobriety and then they throw it away and not be able to come back. That's why I always say, it's a revolving door for some, and you're lucky that you can keep coming back, but there's some that never get to. And that's the sad part of this whole thing, is that there's some that never get to come back.
Yeah, 100%. And my old sponsor, Mikey, would always say, if you stay in this program long enough, you will lose people that you love. He said, that's just the way it is.
It is.
And he said, some will die sober and some will not.
Mm-hmm. And the ones that die sober, that they were okay. They I have a sponsor, Enid. She died with 43 years of sobriety. She was 80 years old. I have her furniture. I think I have her grandmother's 1900s furniture. She left to me, and it's in my living room. I have her furniture, and she's a sponsor that I got here in Bakersfield. And, I watched her. And it's like I have another sponsor back east, Sandy, that was born with no arms, right? And she was still my sponsor when I moved here to Bakersfield, and she died with dignity. I say it with dignity because regardless of what life slaps at you, you don't have to pick up and you don't have to use. Even, my husband had cancer, right? Of course he was on painkillers, but he didn't have to do what he used to do. Right? You don't have to. And that, my grandson was teasing me yesterday and saying, well, Mom, your grandma, no, they call me Meemaw. Sorry. Meemaw, you on your deathbed could probably drink. And I said, oh, no, I can't. Well, why not? You're on your deathbed. I said, because that would hurt me. I would be letting me down. I don't care about the rest of you. It's what's inside of me. I says, I can't do that. I cannot do that. And it's just, I can't. I made that, I don't even know what you would call it, commitment, resolution, I don't know, to myself, that there's nothing, absolutely nothing in this world today that I'm going to pick up over. Nothing. I can walk through it. And if I can't, I'll crawl in bed, pull the covers over me, and cry. But I'll get up the next day, right? There's nothing.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing your story and your experience and strength and hope. Amazing, Regina. Amazing. 29 years. That's
I'm
pretty cool.
blessed. Yeah, I'm pretty blessed.
Well, I was blessed to hear your story, so I appreciate that. And
I hope somebody gets something.
Absolutely. But I can't let you go without doing our rapid fire questions.
Okay, let's go.
Let's do it. You ready?
Let's see how good I am, huh?
This is the real test of your sobriety. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
I got Ruthie now. You can see Ruthie. This is Ruthie.
Oh, Ruthie. Hello, Ruth. She's got three beautiful animals. Ruthie. What was it? You got to tell me. Sophie.
And Peanut.
And Peanut. Yeah. So Peanut, Sophie, and Ruthie.
Yep.
And they were so good while we were recording. So
they were.
Thank you to those three.
Oh, here's Sophie now. You're all coming up to say hi, Mom.
All right, they're gonna help you with these with our rapid fire. So
okay, let's do it.
All right, what is your favorite recovery slogan?
Oh, I don't know. I would say keep coming back, but actually easy does it. And there's a few. The one that,
keep coming back. What is your least favorite recovery slogan?
Probably the same one. I think, think. And that the reason that is because you don't know how to think when you first get here. You say, think. They're like, what? Or let go and let God. How do you do that? That's two answers.
Two answers. What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
God.
If you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
What song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
Hit me with your best shot. That's it.
Go Pat Benatar.
That's right. I was thinking about that too. That is it. I always say, hit me with your best shot. Go ahead. Try.
If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
That I would have gotten sober earlier.
What step do you love the most?
The fourth step and the fifth step.
What step do you love the least?
The fourth and fifth. I don't really have one. They're all cleansing.
What is one of your favorite movies?
What is my favorite movie? Love Story? Yeah. I cry.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Come on in, honey. You're welcome.
That would be nice. Thank you so much, Regina. Thank you for sharing your story. And for the rest of you out there, if this episode meant something to you, please share it with one person who needs some hope today. A new episode of The Cup of Joe Show drops every Thursday at noon. You can listen anytime at thecupofjoeshow.net or on any of your favorite podcast apps, Podbean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." And if you're looking for daily encouragement in your recovery journey, please subscribe to our friends at thedailyponderables.com, delivering inspiration straight to your inbox every morning. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share because someone out there needs to hear this today. Have a good day, everybody.
It's just a laid-back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's Experience, Strength, and Hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to the Cup of Joe Show.